Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the epic 13signsastrology.com, where we keep it raw and uncut. On this particular episode, I'm going to discuss more of this new energy that's coming to the planet. Some of us are calling it the feminine energy. Some people call it the shift of the ages. Some people even think it's the end of the world. Some people call it the apocalypse, War of Armageddon, Judgment Day for those religious people out there. But really, in reality, this is something that happens every 13,000 years, as I say in all of my different episodes and segments. And number 13 again. And it just so happens that we are at what's called 0 point. See, we just left Friday the 13th, the last Friday the 13th of this year. And not only that, but if you add up the day numerologically, on that day, it added up to the number 13. That's right, it added up to the number 13. So it was a very significant day. Anybody that knows anything about the number 13 knows that it's a feminine number. It's the number that represents femininity, but not this passive femininity that people keep imagining. See, when the feminine energy comes to the planet, it can get just as violent as when the masculine energy comes to the planet. But let me explain to you what this feminine energy is doing. I'm going to talk about a few things. I want to give people some left brain, I guess, proof, because people need proof about this feminine energy coming to the planet. Some people think this is just sci-fi or spookism or mumbo jumbo or something like that, but it's much more than that. This is real. This is real. This is going to affect your mental state. This is going to affect your equilibrium. It don't matter if you're a male or female. And a lot of us out here aren't really dealing with this feminine energy. We're not receiving it. We're not receiving it, and a lot of people are fighting it because they want to keep the masculine energy in tune and intact. And a lot of it is a lot of women, believe it or not, from what I'm observing. There's a lot more women that aren't really receptive to this feminine energy, and they want to keep the old ways and the old system going. Because things that, if you know anything about a woman and a female's nature, and when you talk about feminine nature, is that it denotes change. Emotions are always changing, and women are very emotionally sensitive. So we already know that in the universe, the only constant is change. But with this feminine energy coming into the planet, it's even more relevant. There's a lot of stuff going on this planet right now, and there's a lot of secrets. I ain't gonna lie, it's a lot of secrets being kept from people because look at the stuff that's being released right now. When they release a little bit of information to you guys freak out. You know, I'm seeing a lot of just racist comments online and just a lot of mumbo jumbo and a lot of spookism because a lot of people want to get a war started because they feel like if a war gets started, that's going to prevent this energy from coming to the planet when it's not. Even if you were successful in getting a war started, you'll only annihilate yourself because the feminine energy is here and it's not going to change. This is why 13 Signs Astrology came about through the feminine principle, number 13. I mean, this information was taught to me. Like I said, a lot of it was taught to me from a female, and you guys know that from an oracle. So I'm obligated to promote this feminine energy and to discuss this feminine energy. But I mean, just a message to you women out there: you are really supposed to be the torch bearers and the forerunners of this feminine energy coming into the planet. But if you keep functioning off of this old patriarchal masculine paradigm and you're brainwashed and thinking you're not, because that's the thing, like a lot of these women are brainwashed and they think they're not functioning off of this masculine paradigm, but you are. If you're still functioning off of this patriarchal paradigm of wanting to control and act like a man and all of that, you're not going to receive this energy correctly, and you're not going to be able to be the forerunners and the torch bearers and the standard bearer of this new energy. So I want to do is just to help balance things out. That's what I try to do all the time with my videos, is just give you a little bit of proof for some things that's going on in the news and things of that nature to help to bring balance to this feminine energy. And one of the main things I want to focus on when you study the feminine energy and principle is you want to focus on a few topics. One of them is going to be the Kundalini, which we've been discussing. But more so than that, you want to focus on a certain region that we would always watch, 2 points that we always watch to know how close or how far along we are with this shift. And the main region that we want to watch is the area of Antarctica. This is one of our 0 points, the area of Antarctica, and it's a land down there in the area of Antarctica that's called Queen Maud, Queen Maud land, Queen Maud land, which is Maud. And Queen Maud was actually a princess that was born back in like the 1500s. She was born over in London or whatnot, but she was named the queen in the Norwegian, in the Norwegian part of the world. And it's a reason why a female name was given to that land down there. Queen Maud land is actually, for those people that don't know, I mean, you can look this up on Google. It's very researchable. It's a land mass or island actually located along the islands of Antarctica Islands, and it's supposed to be covered in ice right now. Supposedly covered in ice, but at one point, if you start studying a lot of the older maps, what you're going to find out is that this particular land was not always covered in ice. This was one time a green land. This they found, like when they started digging, a lot of scientists that go there, they started digging, and they found out when they go through the layers that even so far back as between 6 and 13,000 years ago, there's that number again, between 6 and 13,000 years ago, this land was not covered in ice, and it was fresh water there, producible, usable water there, and it was not glaciers of ice. And you might ask yourself, and not only that, but you can study some of the Pairi Reis maps, which was Pairi Reis was a Ottoman cartographer, an explorer, and he was a map maker. And he really, basically, if you research him, he'll tell you that he didn't draw these maps up himself. He basically pretty much sketched these maps from even older maps. What you're going to find out is that they knew about Antarctica before it was even supposed to be discovered in our modern time. See, they teach us in school because it's based on this religious paradigm. And I think religion is really the real sci-fi, if you ask me. It's the religious paradigm. That's the real sci-fi, or the stuff that can't be proven. But based on this religious paradigm, they teach us that Antarctica was supposed to have been discovered in 1818. So how is it that Pairi Reis and these different map makers and cartographers are having maps and drawn up, well thought out maps that document the Americas, Antarctica, South America, and even Atlantis as early as the 1500s, and even going back further than that? They got some maps that are even millions of years old, like I was pointing out in the last episode, a segment I did. They have some maps out there that are, from what they think, is maybe possibly millions of years old, because a lot of these cartographers and map makers, they basically, what they did was that they just sketched, they'll find an older map and just redraw it. And a lot of times they'll write it down. I mean, you research their work, they'll say, I didn't create this map out of thin air. We found this map and just redrew it. Because in order to make a map that's, well, if you go look at this Pairi Reis map, you'll see it's an accurate map. And in order to make an accurate map, you got to have some pretty deep technology. I mean, you got to have, you're talking about satellites. You have to be able to have what's called an overstanding to make a good map. Reason being is because if I'm standing on a piece of land looking around, I don't really know what everything else looks like. So either I'm going to go out and survey all the different borders, all the different borderlands, and get an idea based on measurements of how, I guess you could say, how far things are apart, and basically how close the land bodies are together. In order for me to do that, I'm either going to have to go out and measure it myself, which will take a long time, which means I'm going to have transportation to do that and go around the whole world and measure all of this stuff out, or I'm going to have access to some form of a spaceship or some form of something that will be able to observe and look down on the land and be able to draw a map. So you got to ask yourself, for one thing, if we didn't discover Antarctica and Queen Maud land until like around the 1800s, how in the heck, or how in the hell did these Ottoman map makers, and even some going back further than that, how was he able, Pairi Reis, that you can research him and look this up and look up his maps, how was he able to draw these things? Where did he get this information from? So either some aliens really were responsible for seeding this planet long before, or maybe history, or maybe man goes back further than 6,000 years. And maybe what they teach us in the Bible about Adam being 6,000 years old is a myth. And maybe that's not true. So before you can even get into understanding the shift, you got to understand maps and land masses, because when this earth shifts, you got to understand water. And when this earth shifts, the Kundalini energy of this planet is going to become more active. And Kundalini energy moves in this motion that I'm moving my hands in right now. It moves in what's called a spiral. It moves in what's called a spiral, or sometimes it moves in an 8. And it goes from the South Pole to the North Pole, from the South Pole to the North Pole in a number 8 type of figure. And this is how Kundalini energy moves throughout your body. It moves from your crown chakra to your base chakra. And when it becomes active, it begins to move. You begin to attract things to you, and it actually creates like a friction or a heat, an energetic heat. So in order to understand this is why we call it the feminine energy, is because the only way to really understand it is to understand a woman's sex drive. When the Kundalini energy rises in a woman, it's not always sexual, but it'll start that way because it starts at the base and it starts on the sexual chakras. And when it starts moving, you'll notice that when a woman gets turned on, it takes heat for her to get turned on. It takes time for a woman to get turned on. A male sexual energy is based on what's called direct current. A female sexual energy is based on what's called alternating current. So when a woman gets turned on, over time, it's like a rhythm. And over time, she'll begin to get hot, like heat. She'll feel like it's hot in there. That's basically tied into a woman's sex drive. And the earth is it's a female. It was called Tiamat. So her internal energy is the same way. There's an internal mechanism that heats the earth. And it's internal, some people call it a central sun that sits at the core of the earth. It's actually a sun. And there are beings in the center of the earth. We were taught this by the ancients. And people call this sci-fi mumbo jumbo, but this is real. And they're going to find out that this is real. Trust me, scientists will find this out. There are beings that exist in the center of the earth that are responsible for changing the temperature, regulating the temperature of the earth and its internal sun. So the Kundalini energy is basically what regulates this temperature. And what happens is that it's just like when a woman gets turned on. What happens when a woman gets turned on? She gets moist. She could be cold, but she'll begin to sweat, perspire. She'll get moist around her vagina area, or, and she'll begin to leak. And some women, the more you get her turned on, the more moist she'll get. You know what I'm saying? It's just like in a sexual experience or whatever. And it's the same way with the earth. When the earth starts to heat up, the polar ice caps will begin to melt. This will create more water. And what's going to happen is that a lot of land masses are going to go underwater, but then a lot of land masses, earthquakes are going to happen. This is the same way when a woman gets turned on. You'll notice that when an earthquake happens, when a woman gets turned on, this is like orgasm. An orgasm is like similar to an earthquake. Her body is designed just like the internal earth. And you notice when an earthquake happens, things squirt out, all type of stuff comes out. But you'll notice that there's a pulsating, just like the earth or whatever, there's a pulsating. So what happens is that other land masses will begin to rise as the earth goes through these different earthquakes. And they're having a lot of earthquakes up under the ocean that they don't tell us anything about. You guys need to start studying and start looking at different maps and things like that and getting on these scientific websites, and you'll find out that they have earthquakes up under the ocean. You call them tsunamis all the time, but what happens is they regulate it so that we don't find out anything about it. This is where, like, the tsunami that happened just a while back or whatever in Japan, this came from the same shift. This is all a part of the same shift. And what's happened is that there's new land masses coming up, and some land masses will go underwater. You're hearing about snow, even though I've been hearing that some of the photos are fake or whatever, but you're hearing about snow over in Africa and over in parts of the world, in Jerusalem and places that it doesn't even snow at. And you're hearing about, it's a lot of rain going on, like in Florida and different places like that. Like you have these sinkholes that are going on over in Florida, and a lot of land masses and bodies are going underwater. But what's happening is that a lot of land is rising. And when you study this Pairi Reis map, you can go look this up. You'll see that there's a body of land off the coast of Brazil, like 200 or 300 miles off the coast of Brazil. You'll see it's a landmass. And it's basically, this is part of Atlantis, the islands of Atlantis, and this landmass doesn't exist today. See, that's why you need to study these older maps. And you'll see that a lot of stuff that we teach about Lemuria and the islands of Lemuria and how the women existed in the waters, all of this stuff is true. This was just in a time when the feminine energy was dominant. And this is the time that we're going back to. So the woman is very key in this. The woman is very, very key in this, and understanding who she is and her function, her role is going to be as far as on what she's the matriarch. Not her function or role of what society has taught in this day and time about the feminine principle, and as far as the femininity and women running the world. I'm not talking about all of that. I'm talking about understanding the nature of a woman. You're going to have to get into that as a man, but even as a woman, understanding the true nature of a woman and what society will be like once these waters rise. See, a lot of stuff, like, you're going to notice that a lot of water, like if you research now in the news, a news story that just leaked, something else about water, because I'm going to go through a lot of current events in this video. Something else about water, another news story just leaked to where they're taking water from the Great Lakes and shifting this water and selling this water over to China. Because what's happening is that certain places are becoming more dry and other places are becoming, the waters are rising. And when the waters rise, it could cause certain land masses to go underwater. So what scientists are trying to do to attempt to balance out the shift and to balance the circadian rhythms of the earth is they're taking this water and moving it to China so that they can keep, and moving it to places where they might not have as much water so they can keep everything regulated. Another thing that you'll notice is that there's an occult aspect to this. You got to watch the people and the figures that they use to go on certain expeditions. And they just use Prince Harry, the royal Prince Harry, shout out to him, because he sent a shout out to the number 13, so we got to send it back. And he went on Friday the 13th. Keep in mind, him and a team of 21 people went to Queen Maud Land, actually, to Antarctica. And they really didn't talk about what they're doing down there. They said it was just some type of championship. They were racing down there to see who can get down there the fastest or whatever. These groups, 7 groups of 3 people in each group, had a race to go from one point to Antarctica or whatnot. But that's a cover story. It's a lot more to it. Of course, they were down there doing research. Remember, I told you on a video back that Antarctica was one of the key portals to get into the center of the earth. See, they researched and they know this stuff about the occult. They know these are occult orders. And they're not going to tell you. It's not going to ever come on TV. They're not going to ever prove to you the occult, because only the initiated will understand. You see, this is only for those people that have eyes to see and ears to hear, which means that when the Bible says that, it's really talking about those people that understand signals and codes, and those people that understand symbols. Those people that have eyes to see are people that understand symbols, and those people that have ears to hear are people that understand certain codes. So when they use Prince Harry, it's the reason why they used him to go down there, because Queen Maud, the ancient Queen Maud, when you study her nickname was Harry. That was her nickname. So a lot of people don't know that. So it's because she was very playful and active. And Prince Harry's the same way or whatever. So they used him to go down there because he's one of the males that they're using, because they need males too. Still has to be balanced. Just because the feminine energy is in play and intact doesn't mean that the man is not going to be important. As the sister was talking about so eloquently on our last episode of segments, is about the unification and bringing women into the fold of science along with men. So at one point it was just all science was like a male thing at one point, and science was separate from what you would call religion. But what's going to happen is that religion is going to have to embrace science, and you might call it sci-fi right now, but at the end of the day, a lot of your stories and things that you have in the Bible and things like that, you got the right to believe in them. If you want to believe in them wholeheartedly and literally, you can do that, but science is going to disprove all of that. The earth is much older than 6,000 years old. I mean, that's just something that people still believe in to this day, keep in mind. And that doesn't make me an atheist, and that doesn't make me anything like that, because I definitely believe in an unseen power, but we call it spirituality. In religion, they call it God, who's a man with legs. See, they can't get past the physical, and they have to make everything in the Bible act like, in order for you to believe in the Bible, that means you have to believe in it according to religion wholeheartedly, meaning that these are not just allegorical stories according to religion. These are stories that have played themselves out physically. Everything in that Bible has happened. There was a man named Adam. He had a wife named Eve. They came together and had 2 twins, Cain and Abel. And then Cain got kicked out and went to Nod, the land of Nod. They believe all of that. You know what I'm saying? And that you have to take that literally. But what's going to happen is that they're going to have to say this is allegory or it's all out false. And I'm a person where I'm a metaphysician to where I don't knock the Bible. Like I encourage my subscribers to actually read the Bible. I believe all of you should read the Bible from cover to cover, but read it from the eyes of an astro theologian. See, the Bible is nothing but astrology playing itself out. And astrology is the most important science in understanding these shifts because of the precession of the equinoxes, which is something that I'm going to make more videos on real soon. But all of this is tied into the precession of the equinoxes. So it's a reason why the 13th sign came into fruition around the time of this shift, because this represents 0 point. See, this represents the point where masculine and feminine energy merge. So they have to use the male. The male is just as important, but the female has to be brought into certain folds of society that she was not allowed into, and the male has to understand certain feminine aspects and secrets that were kept away from him by women. See, women kept a lot of knowledge and information about plants and herbs and nutraceuticals and things of that nature from males. Males were not really supposed to study that stuff. You were not supposed to be able to really, they say men aren't supposed to be in the kitchen. You're supposed to be out working and building and being hands-on. All of that's changing. You see, like, males are going to have to embrace some of the doctrine and some of the culture, if you want to call it that, that females always knew about, and females are going to have to get into the fold of science so that we can balance this thing out. Because it's called, I'm going to make this point and I'm going to shut the video down because I'm going to make a lot of points, but it's called Queen Maud Land for a reason. The reason why it's called Queen Maud Land is because I told you the queen of the center of the earth is a Rishki gal, and they always knew that. And she controls time. Whenever she wants those polar ice caps to melt, what's going to happen is that she is, I mean, I don't know how they do it through technology or science or whatever, but I know this, that the earth has an internal heating mechanism. It's not that sun that causes this climate change. It's internal. And what happens is that we live on the surface of the earth. And if just like the surface of the earth, you can look at it like an orange. And if you were to peel that orange like away from the, you have what's called the fruit part of the orange, and then you have what's called the skin of the orange. So imagine the surface of the earth as the skin of the orange, and imagine if you separated the skin of the orange from the fruit aspect of the orange, but you kept the skin over it, but you separated it so that it could move and it could spin around. See, that's how the earth is set up. So the surface can spin and move, and whatever plant, it's like a musical chairs. Wherever they want certain continents to be, they can be there. This is what the movie 2012 is about. That whole, you need to watch that movie. If you remember, at the end of the day, the South Pole ended up being somewhere in Milwaukee or something. Wherever they want, at the end of the day, the South Pole to be in the coldest point to be, it could be there. This is how Antarctica was responsible for being so warm at one time. This is why they're finding out that it wasn't always up under ice. The reason why they're finding out why it wasn't always up under ice is because Antarctica wasn't always in the South Pole. Antarctica was further north, thousands of miles north, according to these same maps. And this is truth, and this is why scientists are going back now and studying what the ancients taught, and they're going to try to prove it, to try to figure out, they're trying to figure out where things are going to end up at. Because economics and everything is dependent upon this shift. So people wonder, why is the economy bad? We got to get things back right. You're not going to get things back right thinking away in the religious paradigm in the way that you used to think. The only way you're going to get things back right is you have to embrace a new paradigm. So if it means you need to start watching more sci-fi and cartoons and things of that nature that document sci-fi, see, they put it into the cartoons because they want to give it to the children. They know the adults don't have a clue. The older you get, the dumber you get. This is why they say that in the Bible they teach you this. They say that you're only going to make it to the kingdom as a child, beloved. You have to be a child to make it there. Say, blessed are the pure in heart, because they will be the inheritors and the peacemakers. The pure in heart represent the children, the youth, the star seeds, the indigos, the crystal babies, the Blu-rays, all of this stuff that people thinks is so mumbo jumbo and sci-fi, but yet still your children embrace it. And that's why I'll continue to promote it, continue to teach it, continue to educate and enlighten, research and study it. So it's the shift of the ages right now that's going on, and it's about to be interesting. A lot of people that you may love and care about may not be around. It's still playing itself out, beloved. We're just now being at 0 point. We got to go further from here. You got to think. If I was 0 point, it's like if I'm just now getting to California and I'm crossing the border from Arizona to California and I'm just now getting to California, that's the borderland. That's the 0 point. So I really don't know what Los Angeles looks like. Los Angeles may be thousands of miles away, or it's not thousands of miles. It may be hundreds of miles away from the border of Arizona and California. So if I want to get to Los Angeles, I got to keep going. So you don't know what this feminine energy is going to play out to be like if you don't continue to survive and make it. The only way you're going to continue to survive and make it is you're going to have to keep an open mind and know that you're going to make it. That's why you need maps. That's why I'm talking about maps, so that you can kind of know what's going to happen next. And astrology is a form of a map. This is you mapping the universe and mapping the stars and in the relationship to the earth. This is why astrology is key in understanding the shift as well. Very much in line with understanding the shift. So you're going to either need a map to know, okay, Los Angeles is coming up, so that you can have faith. The only thing a map does is gives you faith to know that wherever you're headed to is there. And it helps you to keep an open mind. That's what it helps you to do. And you're going to need an open mind to make it, because if you go and look back at the old paradigm, they may tell you, just like they said back in the day, the earth is flat. If you keep going, you're going to fall off. If you keep going, you're going to fall off. Because they didn't know about Iceland, and they didn't know about Antarctica and North Pole back then. See, they had maps that didn't even include those places. All they knew about was Africa and certain places, because this is as far as they could go. They didn't know anything about that. They didn't even know about America. This is why they called it the New Land. Even though there were beings coming in and out of America since we don't know how long. The Amazon and all of that. They never talked about any of that. It's because they didn't have a mapping and an understanding of the universe. Even a lot of your metaphysical books need to be updated. Because if you study a lot of your metaphysical books, they're based on a perspective of the East. And if you understand the glyph of Ra, and you understand the what they would call the pick for Ra, as far as the glyph for Ra, it's a man's head facing the west. Why is it facing the west? Because this is where one day the sun will rise in the west. You're saying, how in the hell the sun always rose in the east? Now, when the earth shifts, see, the Mayans, they watched this. They watched many times. They have it documented in their history. This is why it's always in the west you find the ancient stuff. They watched many times the sun will start rising in the east, and then over a period of time the sun will start rising in the west. You can research spirit knowledge on YouTube, and they'll teach you that, spirit science, and they teach you that. I love spirit science. It's a cartoon format. I suggest you guys watch that. Even you older adults, you need to watch it. It's a metaphysical theme that's based on a scientific. It's a metaphysical cartoon that's based on straight up New Age science, and this is the new doctrine and new paradigm that needs to be embraced. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down. Just wanted to go ahead and put that out. You'll see many more coming from me on different topics, such as the precession of the equinoxes and ancient Kemet. We need to talk a lot about that. Yucatan Peninsula. We got a lot to cover, a lot to talk about to make relevant to now, because everything I do is trying to make relevant to what's going on in the news at that particular time. So I'll go ahead and shut this video down. And until we meet again, namaste.